Thank you guys for joining me at the Hard Truth Podcast. This is Jeremy Fouts, and today I have talked about meal plans and I've talked about nutrition a lot, but I've never given a podcast that literally goes through step by step how I work with an athlete. So today's podcast is going to be called The Plan, the Work Equals Results. So I want to kind of walk through this for several reasons. Number one, I want to walk through because maybe you're out there and you maybe can't or not in a situation where you want to pay me to build a custom meal plan. And so I want to share with you what I do. That way you can put my recipes on TikTok and Instagram, what I educate you on the percentages of protein, carbs, and fats. And then you can follow this step by step and see good results yourself. I've never been one of those guys that want to hold in all of the secrets. I had someone that was a personal trainer and builds meal plans the other day. He messaged me on Instagram and I messaged them back and said, "How can I help you?" And they said, "Well, just to be curious, would you be willing to kind of share with me how you're doing things?" And I said, "Man, I'll share with you anything that I've got." There's enough people out there that are hungry for nutrition. And when it comes to us parents trying to raise athletes, and even us parents trying to learn how to live a healthier lifestyle, if I can do anything to support anyone, whether it pays me or not, I'm going to do it. So today, I want to kind of walk you through. I did a podcast once talking about the most important part of the meal plan is starting off by figuring out your calories you're burning. Your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, how many calories you're burning at rest. Then your TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure, how many calories you are burning with all of your activities. And parents, these athletes are doing so much, it's not even funny. I mean, when I played ball, played football, baseball, and basketball, we'd play 10, 11 games of each sport, and then it was done. And then we was fishing, we was hunting, we was doing other things that boys would do or girls would do. And nowadays, it's all year round. And the reason I know that, again, is I'm in your shoes. I've got two athletes, one a senior and one a sophomore. Beckett's playing lacrosse this weekend. He had hitting lessons this week. He had a football game. He had practices every day this week in football. He's got lifts every day in football. I mean, it's just non-stop with these athletes burning calories. So I've already did a podcast talking about how to figure that up. And you're more than welcome going to my website at www.jeremyfouts.com and go to the athlete calculator burn. If you don't know how, I'll make it real easy for you to just input your numbers. But let's just say we're going to start today's podcast by saying, you know how many calories you need. What is the next step? The next step is starting off by figuring out what your macros are going to be. Now, when I talk about calories, that's the math side of the equation. The macro side is what I call the science side. And we're not even going to talk about macros. Most of my athletes are not in a position that we even want to talk about macros. But macros is what really makes sure we're getting the right calories in you. That way you develop and turn into the right athlete. So, for example, when I start off with an athlete, I'll start off around 18, 19% of their calories in protein. About 53 to 55% or so is going to be of carbs. And then the remaining percentage is going to be of fats. And that's usually where I start an athlete out at. Now, if you just want a general rule of thumb, do 25, 50, 25. That is fine. But because when I work with an athlete and I get these results in on a weekly basis, then I'll start upping their protein a little bit, depending on the results, backing up their carbs and depending on their training level, and then maybe increasing their fats a little bit. A lot of that depends on their age. Just got through doing a plan for a 13-year-old. He needs a little bit higher fats to help him through puberty. I'm working with another college boy. I pulled his fats back and then I increased his carbs a little bit because his training load has intensified right now. So all of this is a little bit of a science game, but it's going to be a very important for you to just stick with some numbers that you're comfortable with, which is fine doing 25, 50, and 25. 25% protein, 50% carbs, 25% fats. Okay, that's a fine place for you to start. Now, I want to walk you through some of the things that I do with my athletes. And I'm doing this again for two reasons. Number one, to educate you, for you can take the resources that I'm giving you and apply them into your everyday life. Another reason is I'm going to point a lot of athletes to this and say, listen to the podcast to be reminded what I expect of you. So we have the plan now. Next is, do we do the work? Now, when I build a meal plan, I give, all of the information to them, the recipes, the grocery list. I mean, everything to a T. They know exactly every meal, how much carbs, proteins, fats. They know exactly how many calories. That way, if they need to substitute out for mom's birthday going to the Mexican restaurant, they can tell the server what they need calories wise, protein, carbs, and fats wise. There's a lot of reasons why I do that. Maybe they're traveling on a baseball tournament, traveling on a softball tournament, whatever that situation is. But we got our plan in front of us. What is the next step? First thing I tell my athletes is it is not your mom and dad's job to baby you and do everything. You take that grocery list with your mom and dad, you go to the store, you learn how to look at the back of ingredients, you learn how to make good choices. Then we come home and then we meal prep. You're not going to be able to follow a meal plan without preparation. You're not going to get up in the morning, look at the meal plan and say, oh, we need 2 eggs, we need this, we need that. You have to meal prep. And I see it all the time. People waking up, they're like, what am I going to eat? They just grab something, a protein bar. They go out, they're underfueled, they don't get good lists. So you have to meal prep. Now, day one, let's say we meal prep. What's the first thing that my athletes do? The first thing they do every morning is weigh on an empty stomach. I have worked with so many athletes that have used other courses, they've tried different things, and they are not tracking their daily performances. You have to track these 3 things every day. Your morning weights, and it goes into your phone every morning. I teach my athletes to have their scales in the bathroom. They get up, they use the bathroom, and they weigh. That's what I call true morning weights. They put it in the notes of their phone. The second thing that I teach them is track everything that goes into your mouth. I like using an app called Chronometer. Chronometer is a free app that you can track your calories. I don't care what app you use, but you've got to track everything that goes into your mouth. Now, some of my athletes will say, well, if I'm going to eat everything on your plan, it has everything on there, why do I need to track it? Well, I might give you a big breakfast and it has 600, 700 calories or 800, and you only ate 90% of it. I want you to log 90% of that. That way I know as the week goes through how many calories, what your true weights are, how your body's responding to the calories, exactly what's going on in your body. So we weigh every morning, we track our calories every day, and then the next thing is we get real on our water intake as far as whatever ounces I prescribe to you. The athlete I just sent a meal plan to, I told him you need 100 ounces of water a day. I told him to find a 30-ounce cooler that's going to be his buddy, whether that be a Yeti or I don't care what it is. Know that he needs to fill it up 3 times, and then he's going to add 10 more ounces of water to it. Now, why is that important? Well, water we know is very important for the digestive, inflammation, our joints, but it also gives me good, true morning weights. If I had an athlete that drinks 60 ounces of water one day and drink 160 ounces of water the next day, I'm not going to get a true weight every morning. So those are the 3 things that I do. Now, the next thing is an athlete tells me when they're going to start the plan. They tell me by a text and say, I'm starting tomorrow. My follow-up system is first day, third day, fifth day, and then the morning of the eighth day. And I tell my athletes, gaining weight is a mental roller coaster. Literally, the days that you eat the most, it seems, you weigh the least the next morning. The days you didn't eat a lot, maybe you skipped something, a snack, it seems like the next day you weigh more. So that's why I tell them we're not looking at morning weights and saying we gained a pound because we might lose a pound the next morning. We're looking at a 7 day average. And how much that I expect out of my athlete depends on where I set their surplus at. If they want to gain 1 pound a week, then I set their surplus at about 500 calories per day, more than what they're burning. If they want to gain 2 pounds a week, I set their calories at 1,000 of more surplus of what they're burning. I've had a lot of, nutritionists and different ones say, well, gaining 2 pounds a week is really hard. It is hard. But I've got athletes doing it all the time. Usually that's for my older athletes. I usually don't start a 13-year-old on a 2 pound gain a week because their stomach is not stretched. A lot of times they're not mature enough to really go put the work into it. But I do it all the time with my older athletes, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, all the time, 2 pounds of gain a week. One of the questions, I'm going to go over a couple questions that a lot of people ask is, if my son gains weight, will it slow him down in his sport? I've never had an athlete that I've put a significant amount of weight on that has got slower. Every one of my athletes get faster. I've got a pitcher down in Mississippi, was doing this to increase his velocity. He went from 170 to 195 since July, and his 60 time went from a 6'8" to a 6'6". And I could tell you stories. I got another Prosper boy, weighed 149, 150, got to 185. His 60 time went from a 7 to a 6'8". Every time. Now, why is that? It's because of the science part. We want to make sure that we're building muscle. Muscle weighs more than fat, and that's the most important thing. Now, I take my weekly averages. I report back to my athlete and say, great, you gained 1.2 pounds this week. Our goal was 1. Now, athletes, one of the things that really bothers you guys is you want now to weigh 185 if you weigh 165. But you got to look at it and say 1 pound a week times 10 weeks, that's 10 pounds. And a lot of times the younger population have a hard time of looking and saying, man, if I do this for 10 more weeks. So I teach my athletes, I'm like, okay, getting a plan, it takes me about 2 to 3 hours, guys, to do a plan. I mean, it's all hand done. I have to do the grocery list. I have to make sure the recipes are there. I have to make sure everything is correct. It takes me a lot of time coaching them. But I tell them, doing the plan is not the hardest part. Doing the work is a little bit harder, but the hardest part is, can I do it consistently? Can I get up week 2 and have the same excitement as week 1? Can I get up week 3 and have the same excitement as week 2 and as week 1? The biggest thing is consistency. And that's something that I can't stress enough. Now, parents, my best advice for you is you to get on a plan as well. I didn't mean to say this, but a lot of you probably know I train a lot of adults on a different app. I set their calories, I set their macros. They use that app to be able to hit the recipes. Whatever that situation, I build their workouts. But the reason I brought that in is because you can't expect your athlete to work his butt off and you sit and watch Netflix and not be in shape yourself. I have parents over and over ask me, how can I motivate my athlete? And I'm like, be an example. That's the most important part. Be an example. Now, next we're going into the progression. So if you start at week 1, you gain 1 pound, and then I put that in your profile. Then I'll look and see, okay, you gain 1.1, 1.2 pounds. That's what we were shooting for. And then I'll look at, see how your body's responding to the calories and the macros. And then I may make a tweak. I may not make a tweak. And the reason I say that is because if your body is responding real good to those staple foods, And I want my athletes eating the same foods for the first 3 or 4 weeks. The reason why is because if I keep introducing new foods over and over, now that don't mean that if I got them breakfast burritos and week 2 they want to switch to protein pancakes, that we can't do that. We can definitely do that, or maybe change a snack up, whatever. But I want my consistent carbs, my rice, my beef, my chicken. I want those recipes to be pretty similar week to week to build what my stomach sees as this is my fuel, instead of introducing a lot of new sauces, a lot of new things over and over and over. Now, as we continue to work, we're working week to week. We're seeing our results. There's going to be a time, maybe week 4, maybe week 5, maybe week 6. As you put on more muscle, your BMR increases. So the more muscle you have, the more calories you're going to be burning at rest. So we're going to make a small increment of increase of calories. I just got through doing that with the pitcher yesterday. He just committed to Army. I think he started off with me at 160 pounds. He's 180 pounds now. He has kept this plan till he got to 180. He texted me and said, Jeremy, in our weekly follow-up, he goes, I'm stabling out at 180. I said, Brett, how much more of an increase can you handle? 300 calories okay? He said, yes. So I increased him 300 calories. We're going to see a little bit better gain this week than what we did last week because he is starting to level out. That's normal because his BMR is increased because he's putting on so much more muscle. And that's the way we continue to monitor that success during this progression. So athletes, I'm going to tell you, yesterday I had an opportunity to speak at a Denton High School. I spoke at Highland Park High School baseball team the couple days before. We'll speak at a couple more next week. And I can't stress to you enough, my son is a senior, and I'm working with a lot of athletes right now. It's not just about your batting average. It's not just about how many stolen bases you have. And if it's basketball, I've got a lot of basketball players I'm working with right now too. If you're wanting to play at that next level, parents, please listen. Get in the kitchen with your student athlete. Get to meal prepping. Get a plan. Start tracking your calories in, your calories out, your protein, your carbs, your fats. Start tracking your water every day. Start tracking your morning weights. All of these things, and get serious about it. The other day, I meant to say, and I got sidetracked, I was at high school. By the time I got home, I had 3 messages of athletes that said, Jeremy, I need to gain weight and these are skilled ball players. I'm not getting any offers, and every coach is telling me I'm too small. Moms, dads, these college coaches want someone physical. They are comparing your athlete to a sophomore in college when he's only a senior. We can say it's not fair, but that don't change the situation. We've invested a lot of time. We've invested a lot of money into our athlete. I share this podcast because I'm not saying you have to hire me. You just have to get a plan. You have to go to work, and you have to be consistent, and you have to understand the importance of your athlete. If he wants to play at the next level, him or she, they got to get physical. They got to be strong. They got to be fast. And that got to be someone that the coach automatically looks at and says, they pass the eye test. So I hope that today this podcast lets you understand that it's not just going to happen by doing nothing. I did a video not too long ago, and I said, on the video, I said, hey, everyone wants to win a state championship. Everyone wants to go play college ball. Everyone wants to be the dude or the dudette. But do you want to win every day of taking care of business? Do you wake up with a champion's mindset and say, I don't have to eat the breakfast. I get an opportunity to eat the breakfast to get bigger, faster, and stronger. I don't have to go to lifts today. I get an opportunity to go lift to get bigger, faster, and stronger. Athletes and parents, listen to me. The best thing that you can do for your student athlete is understand the importance of nutrition. As I speak to these high schools, I talk about three things over and over: sleep 9 hours a day, hydration, and nutrition. Calories, how many we burning, how many are we bringing in, what's our protein, carbs, and fats. And if you want to make a big difference in your athlete's performance, focus on the nutrition, hydration, and sleep. Thank you guys for joining the podcast. Share with a friend or family member. Subscribe to the podcast. It helps the algorithm big time. I don't do no ads on here. One day, hopefully, I'm going to do some Core Vive ads because I own the company, and that'll be kind of cool to just support my own brand. But thank you guys for being loyal listeners to the podcast. Give me feedback, leave us a review, and share with your friends and family.